Hello and welcome back to the Business First Creatives podcast. I legitimately cannot tell you how excited I am to have today's guest. She is like my best friend that I have never actually met in real life. Guys, we have so much in common, including living in the same damn city, but I have never wrapped my arms around Rachel and given her a legitimate hug. So, Rachel, welcome to my podcast. How are you this morning?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. I am pumped to be here and to talk to you.
I am just hoping that having you on my podcast sparks us being able to go to brunch or coffee once we
Yes.
get our children situated. That
One
is my
day.
life goal right now. So tell our listening audience who you are, why people pay you, and where you're located.
I'm Rachel Greiman. I live in Denver, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
People pay me to write website copy for them. I should clarify, photographers pay me to write website copy for them. Those are the only people that we serve. I shouldn't say that. I say that on all the podcasts, and it's mostly true. But if you're a creative professional, like a designer, and you slide into my DMs and I love what you do, I will write for you. I write for designers quite a bit, actually.
So wait, let's back up. Because every time I have ever tried to hire you, you tell me, no, Colie,
I
the
know.
website's great. But listen, if you will actually write for something that's not for photographers, no, I will seriously hire you to read the Dubsado website.
Oh, yeah. I would totally look at that.
Oh, 100%.
I just say no to you because your website is working. You don't need me. And that's my full disclosure for anybody that comes into our inbox asking. I look at their website and I'm like, oh, you don't need the full thing. This is what you need. And I would never ask for somebody's money unless I actually think that I could help them in a meaningful way.
Well, I think you could help everybody in a meaningful way because every time you and I have a conversation about real things or absolute bullshit, I walk away with so much knowledge, which listening audience, I just want to put a plug in here. This is the first time that I'm ever going to link to someone else's podcast in the show notes, because I want to preface this by saying, although I've known Rachel for years through the internet, she was recently on the Get Paid podcast, and it was legitimately the best podcast episode that I've ever heard. It's also why she's sitting here right now, ready to talk to me.
That is so nice.
I don't want to say that you have to listen to that episode first, but like if you like what we talk about today, I would highly recommend that you go check out that other podcast episode. It is long. Like I kicked my kid out of the car so that I could sit in the garage and finish it when I started listening to it. So it was really good. And Rachel's talking all about, how she got started in her business, what she pays herself, running a business during a pandemic while having kids, like all of the things. And we're going to touch on most of that today. But just in case you feel like, okay, Rachel is someone that I could listen to all day long, I highly recommend that you go listen to that episode.
And Claire has a million good episodes, the host of the Get Paid podcast. She's great.
She's like who I want to be when I grow up. I'm like, she has the perfect amount of like sarcasm and cussing, which we all know is what I aspire to be in life. So yes, I am obsessed with her podcast. And then when I heard you, I was like, oh my God, Rachel's on her podcast. So let's move forward, guys, because I've given you a little hint about what we're going to talk about today. This is like totally an unscripted episode. I didn't send Rachel questions, again, because I know Rachel, but I also really knew what I wanted to talk about with her. So Rachel, I want to take you back to the end of 2019, which for all of us listening, we know that's like the last regular business year that we had before COVID hit. So Rachel, tell me what your business looked like in December of 2019.
Oh, this is such a great question. I was violently ill. I was in the first trimester with my son, and I was eating a lot of like Popeye spicy chicken sandwiches. That was like the only thing that sounded good. That's like what I remember about that season of my life, and burritos.
Okay.
And sorry, that was like just a flashback for me for a moment.
It's okay.
My business, though, I had just launched a full rebrand of my website because my copywriting, I used to be just a photographer, and the copywriting side of my business really blew up in 2017 and 2018. But my website was still just all photography. Like I had one page about copy, even though probably 80% of my income during those years came from copy. And everything else you got there and you thought I was a family photographer, which I still was, but not as much. And we were living in Philly. And so I rebranded the whole site. So it was equal parts, like a split screen when you landed on the homepage, copywriting for photographers.
I love that website.
I know, it was really good. Maddie Tygreen is my website designer, and she is fabulous. And it was like family photography on the other side. So it was kind of like a choose your own adventure site, because I felt like I am both of these things. I was trying to establish myself in Pennsylvania as a documentary family photographer, not knowing that the majority of my time spent there would be in a pandemic where I'm not going into people's homes. So I spent literally thousands of dollars on this rebrand to set myself up for a business that I never really got to do. So, which is fine. It's fine. But so I had just launched this website, and I was really excited to position myself as both finally publicly. If you had worked with me, you knew that I did both. But if you were a random person and I was getting found on Google more that was coming to my site, it was not clear that we were like real legit copywriters and that I had a team. So that was December 2019. I was really looking forward. I had 6 months left of my pregnancy, and I was going to try to fit in a lot more photography. And I was going to a couple different copywriting conferences. I hired another writer in January of 2020, my second team member. So I was really ramping up that side. So big plans for that girl.
I mean,
for December really 2019, Rachel.
And then, of course, there was January, and there was February. And then March is when the world basically ended.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that I wanted to get you to take us back to December 2019 is because you and I have this in common in terms of we are both photographers, and we both have a very side that is very business-driven, that is not specifically related to our photography, but they are aligned because we both help photographers do our business side. And so I really miss that website. I just want to put it out there, because for any of my clients that came to me and were like, oh, Colie, but I do this and this, I would always send them to your website as a really good example of how two completely different offers, services could live together as long as you had piece of messaging. So that was my favorite thing about your website. If you have a screenshot, I would love it.
I do.
Yeah. Just send that over to me so that I have
it for my
files.
Is still built in the back end of Squarespace, because my new website is on WordPress. I launched another website because obviously that one was not working for me in a COVID world, like March of this year. Yeah. But anyway, I'll send you a screenshot.
I love it. And so let's talk about like the pandemic hit. And I know that you were already planning to take time off because you were pregnant. And so I want you to tell me about the process of kind of ramping up your business. You thought you were going to do more photography. And then like all of us in-home people, I was like, yeah, I'm not going into your home for hours to breathe your air. That's not happening. So how did your progression from thinking that you were going to do all of the photography to then backing up and solely focusing on copywriting, how did that go during the pandemic? After you had your son, and then you were basically in Pennsylvania with like no support team because there was a pandemic.
So honestly, as soon as COVID hit and it became clear that it was going to last longer than 2 weeks, I very quickly said, I'm not going to focus on photos at all. Like, this is not a focus of mine. And I had just hired another writer. So it became very clear that I was going to put all of my energy into copy and getting clients for that side of my business. And there was no time to mourn that loss. I mean, I was a photojournalism major in college. I was a photographer for nonprofits for several years after college. I was a family photographer before I started copywriting. Photography is like my first love. And I did not even have the bandwidth to be like, this is sad that I'm not doing this anymore. And honestly, that's something that I still struggle with now. But it was like, okay, go mode. This is not working. We got to lean into the copy. And it was bad timing. I had hired a Facebook ads team. I had never run an ad in my life up until that point. And I was scheduled to start running ads on March 14th, 2020. And
Which is the day. Yeah. That was the day. Yeah.
The day. Like, they were all booked. We had finalized it the week before. And I had asked this agency if we could pause, just take a beat. Let's just see what's happening, because I didn't want, I was like, this is unprecedented, obviously. So let's like figure this out. And they told me that they would not honor that because I signed a contract. So I'm
sorry, pause. I rarely interrupt my guests. But like what in the actual fact? They told you that they would not pause.
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify, were the ads for copy or were they for photography?
They were for copy.
Okay, continue.
So I get it. They're scared. They're running a business too. They don't know what's happening. But I'm on like a monthly payment plan. It was either I think it was 3 months, and it was like $2,000 a month, maybe. I was like, well, I'm out $2,000 if I don't run these. So I started running them. It was fine. I probably broke even ultimately on that, which is fine. It is what it is. Everybody's just doing their best at that time. But it was just like a series of unfortunate events that I think all of us experienced. And it was like the ads aren't really doing much for me. I just need to keep talking. So I found my role as kind of like the team encourager during that season on social media. I would hop onto Instagram and be like, how we doing today? What's everybody feeling? And just try to find moments of levity and humor and fun, but also like, hey, this is what's happening in the world. How do you all feel about it? Just giving people a space to breathe, helping photographers come up with creative ideas to keep their businesses going. I really viewed myself as a support person as much as I could then. And we were fine. We had enough. I actually stopped writing for the most part. I did a couple more projects that year, but my nanny of my daughter at the time, who was 2 when I had my son in June, she was pregnant. She had a baby the same week I did. And she was going to watch our boys, like we were the babies. And my daughter was supposed to go to preschool that fall. So I was supposed to have 2.5 months with the new baby, get into that routine. And then she was going to take him and she was going to preschool. Full-time childcare set up. Yes. Loved it.
Everyone's dream.
Yeah. And it all went away. And so my husband and I were both stay-at-home, full-time working, full-time parents. And that continued for almost a year. And it was so goddamn miserable. Like
brutal.
The lowest point of my life probably, which is such a bummer because 2-year-olds are so fun. And my daughter was so fun and I just missed it because I was in a fog of fear. And it is what it is. And I'm very proud of myself for like making it through. But I paid myself less that year in 2020 than I ever did. And it just needed to happen because I needed to be present for my kids. Like I was nursing and not sleeping and trying to entertain a 2-year-old in a 5-story townhome in downtown Philadelphia. Like there wasn't a lot for me to do.
That literally sounds like my worst nightmare.
It was bad.
I feel like, and I don't want to say I had it easy because I don't think anybody had it easy.
No, I don't think anyone did.
But I think that my life with a 10-year-old at that point was very different than the lives of those who had young children, or particularly those who had multiple young children. Because when it came to virtual schooling, that first, the last 2 months of the school year in 2020, we actually did great.
Yeah.
Chloe was thriving. And then the whole next year when she did virtual, Chloe was doing really, really well. But I know that most other people didn't feel that way because they were trying to manage their small children who really had no business sitting on a computer all day long, let's be honest. But then if they had multiple, it's like, how do you help both of them at the same time? And so I know you took a step back. You let your team do most of the copywriting and you were just kind of doing the managing. You paid yourself like this minimum salary. And I will say for myself, at that point, I was mostly doing photography. So when the pandemic hit, I was like, I'm not going into people's houses. And I have the luxury of knowing almost all of my clients intimately. And so when we did open back up, I think it was a full 2 months that I wasn't allowed in someone's house. But when we finally did reopen and I started going to my clients' houses, I did have the luxury of feeling comfortable because I knew all of them were taking the exact same precautions that I was taking. And so even though I was spacing them out, I was only going to one client a weekend. I was, keeping as much distance as I could. I was wearing a mask. I did feel comfortable in my clients' houses. So that was a luxury that I think I had that a lot of other people didn't.
And wedding photographers, I feel like, were in these tight spaces with sweaty people dancing. And I felt so bad for people that didn't have a lot of choice about who they were interacting with at their jobs every weekend.
I agree. And so now at the end of the end of 2022, I will say my photography business looks much, much different. Like I am like you. I even now, like I'm going into people's houses. I have 3 sessions this weekend, but like I get anxiety from like going to photograph the clients inside their houses, not really because I'm worried that they're going to give me COVID, although truth, I did get COVID from a client, even
Yeah.
wearing an N95 mask. But like, I am more anxious about getting COVID from one client and passing it to another. So like, in comparison to like what previous years would look like, I'm still like relatively shooting like the bare minimum number of sessions that I can. Um,
But that's also because of pivots you made during the
it is,
pandemic
yeah.
and growing this other side of your business.
It is. So just like you really leaned into copywriting, I really leaned into setting up Dubsado for other business owners. And I've always loved doing it, but I never offered it as a separate service. It was always part of like my mentoring photographers. Like, oh, you come to me, you want to be a documentary family photographer. I'm going to help you with your technical side of like getting really great photos in homes. I'm going to help you with your website because if you are not converting off the website, you are not going to have any clients. And then I was also like, okay, but when you get the leads, what are you doing with them? So then I would help them with their Dubsado. But it wasn't until 2020 that I was like, okay, yeah, no, I can actually do these Dubsado setups. So by the time I entered 2021, I actually made equal amount of money doing Dubsado and doing photography, which my photography in 2021, I actually earned more than I'm going to earn this year because again,
Yeah.
I've kind of been ramping it
Yeah.
down. But like
But you're
that
running
was a
2 operating businesses. You can't press
yes.
gas on both at the same time.
No. Well, you can't without help.
Yeah. Yes,
So let's
exactly.
talk about our help, Rachel.
Yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
does your team look like now?
Yeah. So we have 3 writers right now, all female, all in Denver. I love them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I did not know that they were all based here. That is fascinating.
Yeah, and I love it. I love being able to see them and hug their necks. And my assistant too, also female, also in Denver. And so Jess is my virtual assistant. I call her my captain of organization. That's her official title here at Green Chair Stories. She is magic. She makes my world go round. And my writers are contracted. They're not employees. Neither is Jess. She's contracted. But they get paid by project, the writers do. So when they have complete control over whether they say yes or no. I send them a link. This is who the photographer is. I think you're the best match for them. Here's why. What's your availability and do you want this? So they can always say no to me. There's no punishment for ever saying no to me. Work as much or as little as they want on any given month. And they get paid by project, by website that they write. Jess gets paid hourly because she does a lot of other things for me. So my writers, they follow the same exact process that Jess has beautifully written out in my workflow. And so they're pretty uniform in everything. And Jess is more, hey, what do we need to do this week? So she manages my inbox. She manages my Dubsado. She does invoicing. She does schedules. She handles my Acuity. She helps me with blogging and content creation. You name it, Jess is running the show.
Does she help you with those reels, though? Let's be honest. Is she
No,
helping you with those reels?
those are
you?
me. That is all me. I am the reels commander over here, for better or for worse.
I feel like every day, and I will also say Instagram is doing a really good job of showing me your shit. I will say
Oh, good.
I have
I'm
not seen
so
a lot
glad.
of people's stuff, but like this morning when I woke up, I mean, maybe they were looking inside of my email box and they knew that we were chatting today. But the first thing that I woke up to when I looked on Instagram was your reel from, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but
yeah,
you know, one of them. And I was like, oh, this is so awesome to see Rachel's face before I see Rachel's face. But so tell me about what you are doing in your business right now, because again, like before you were passing everything off, paying yourself a minimum salary. Have you kind of like, for a lack of a better term, have you come back to work?
Yes. I mean, I have been so diligent in marketing and I am realizing that that is what I love. I love to market this business. I love to brag about the people who are doing the writing. I love to write my email newsletter. I like to do site critiques. I'm really just enjoying that side of it. I write about 4 newsletters a month. And I try to create 4 reels a week, which sounds ridiculous, but it is so time consuming.
You're so good. I know.
Thank you. But it is not a small feat for me. I try to show up in stories. I answer every single inquiry that comes into our inbox. Now, Jess manages the front end of that. And then I come back and give personalized feedback to everybody that inquires, but it still requires my one-on-one attention. I have written maybe 5 sites this year so far. This is September. So I'm trying to take it kind of easy. It just takes a lot of brain power to write a website. And I did both admin and writing for so long. And I know that both weren't perfect. And I like to do things as close to perfect as possible. So now that I'm focused on marketing, I feel like we actually have a good system and workflow to our marketing. I'm, pitching people for guest blog posts, as as you have one sitting there waiting to send to me. I'm trying to I'm pitching podcasts all the time. I have another interview today. I had another interview yesterday. So when you fill the time that you have, and now that I'm not writing, I am able to fill my time with so much more outreach. And if I'm trying to keep 3 writers busy every single month, we need to have a shit ton of inquiries coming in. So that's my focus right now. It's never been a problem, but this is always the season of the year where I get a little like, okay, where are they? Because
I haven't had a sales call in weeks. Where are they? Yeah.
Everyone's busy. Photographers are so busy. Wedding photographers are winding down. Family photographers are ramping up. This is not when people think about redoing their website.
No, but it's coming.
I know that logically.
Yes.
But I am. And it's hard because sometimes my writers will be booked out 2 months ahead of time so they know their schedule. And other times it's like, I will probably get an email today and have to be like, hey, can you start a website in 10 days? Or can you do that? Can you do all that prep? It's just dependent on that. So, and in a post-COVID world, there isn't that natural rhythm and flow that there was in the first couple of years of my copywriting business because photographers' worlds were turned upside down. Last year was still wild. They were shooting triple the amount they normally did. So there was no slow season. There was no slow season for photographers last year because of all the COVID reschedules. So this year, I think we're slowly easing our way back into some normalcy. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing.
And Rachel, I'm just going to hit on this because, you've talked about how you love the marketing, but I legitimately love that you are talking about the outreach and not the passive. Because I think, you are actually talking about marketing copywriting. But this is true for any service. I feel like people get too comfortable in what I have termed hopeful marketing. You put your stuff out there and you just hope that people are going to contact you. And people just don't realize, if you are sitting legitimately at your desk and just waiting for the inquiries to come, they're not going to come in whatever capacity you want them to. It will never come at that level. So you do have to reach out to people. You do have to collaborate. You do have to legitimately ask your clients to refer you.
100%.
It's easy as photographers, right? Because as photographers, our clients have images and they all want to share on social media. But guys, you have to remind them to say, oh, Colie was my photographer. If you want her information, here it is.
Right.
You have to remind them to do that because that is not a natural thing. It is not a natural thing for us to get photos and be like, oh, Rachel took these of my family. Let me put them up and make sure that I take her website link and put it there and make sure that I tag her on Instagram. That is not what people are thinking about. People are thinking about, oh my God, I got these amazing images. Don't I look good?
Yeah, totally. And it's not their job. It's your job. It's your job to tell them. And I see photographers get frustrated. Well, they didn't even tag me. And I'm like, did you ask them to? Was there at any point in your website
conversation
in your email template that you say, here's the images? Does it have a line that says, please tag me? My business lives and dies on referrals. I would so appreciate a shout out. There's nothing wrong with asking for that. Sharing is caring.
That's mine. And I actually put on my Care Bear outfit when I say sharing is caring.
Yes, it's perfect. But, we're copywriters. We show up on the first page of Google for copywriters, for photographers. I think we have really good copy on our website. That does not mean I am not hustling for inquiries. My website does its job when people get there. But my website is not naturally bringing people there every day. I've got to tell people, hey, go here, click this link, go here, link in profile.
Yeah. And so like you want your clients to talk about you, but like, and your clients want to talk about you. For anybody in the listening audience, it is not that your clients don't want to brag. It's
No,
just,
no, no, no.
that just doesn't come to mind. So, as much as you remind them and you ask them to do so and you make it easy for them to do so, like, I mean, hey, service providers, is there a way that you could make a little graphic and share it with your client and be like, hey, when you talk about me on your social media, could you share this? It's already got my information there. I mean, it can just be as easy as that.
Totally. 100%. Just ask.
Just ask. So, what are your plans for the rest of 2022? Do you think you're going to be writing any websites? Are you just going to be chilling with? Oh, actually, let me just back up. How is parenting going? Like, have you actually found childcare? Is your daughter preschool? Because I mean, you're in a new house. You are back in Denver where you belong.
Yeah, we bought a house a year ago. We moved back to Denver in 2021. We've been in this house since last June. We're about to remodel the whole thing, so we got to move out for like 9 months.
Okay, you and everybody else, Rachel. So Chloe's bestie right now, they're living in a townhouse that the in-laws own.
Oh, that's nice.
They got lucky.
Okay? Yeah, seriously. I'm going to have rent and a mortgage, so not so lucky over here. So scary. But it is fine. We bought exactly where we want to be. It's in our favorite neighborhood in Denver. We want our kids to go to school, to high school here. Like, we bought the home knowing full well that we were going to have to redo it. It's just nothing is easy, now that they're finally back in preschool. She's there 5 days a week, praise be. He is there 3 days a week, and my mother-in-law has him one day, and then I have him Tuesdays. Tuesdays are me and my boy. But
awesome. I love that you're getting that, alone time with him.
Yeah, and he does too. Oh my gosh. He would crawl back into my womb if he was able to. He loves his mother. And it's great. I'm so grateful that I have the flexibility to spend a day with him. I wouldn't be able to do that if I worked somewhere else. So yeah, that's how parenting is going. But my son got COVID last week. The rest of us didn't. The rest of us were fine. Like 6 negative tests for all 3 of the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And he had it. So they were both home for a full week. So it's like, even when you have like best laid plans, there's always something's going to mess them up. So it's like I have A, B, and C planned out, but plan D is usually the one that I have to come up with last minute. So I am fully booked for the rest of the year with various projects that I'm doing. I'm only writing one more website, but my calendar is open for January 2023. I try to get people to book my writers though, because I'm like, hey, they've written less photography websites than I have. This brain has cranked out 200 photographer websites. I would recommend hiring one of my writers, and then I will edit it. You're still getting the Rachel Greiman experience. You're just getting a fresher brain. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm not booking, really, because it's cheaper to hire an associate, and I think they're just as good as me. So,
and then plus, if you're putting your final touches on it. So, I mean, I will say, after I listened to your episode, I got like all kinds of motivated. First of all, I hired a new virtual assistant.
Yeah, girl.
Second of all, I hired a new podcast editor, manager.
Oh, good for you.
Yes. Rachel, I'm outsourcing all the things.
Do it. I'm addicted to outsourcing. I'm addicted to it.
Awesome.
Yes.
But I will say that one of the things that I didn't realize when I hired a virtual assistant was I happened to get one that's really good at Dubsado. Like legitimately the first. So what I've been doing for my Dubsado setups is on day 1 at strategy, 4-hour call with me. We talk about all of your business, kind of what you do, getting their voice, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then I sit down and I basically lay out everything that they need. And then I turn it over to the VA to prepare their account for me to go in. She loads all the forms, all the emails. I cried when she did the first one. And she did it as fast as I would have done it. Because I will say for a while, in case you guys don't know this, my husband was helping me at the end of last year with the prep. And it was great. I mean, he really got in a groove, but that's not his thing. And so he was nowhere near as fast as me, like 2 times as slow as me at least. But it was good because he was doing it and I didn't have to do it. And when my VA did it the other day and it was just as fast as I did, I was like, oh my gosh. So
all the praise hands.
And then I go in there and I do the actual implementation. So, fixing everything and like connecting it. So I feel like you, Rachel, I feel like right now you're getting the best parts of me. Like you're getting the strategy.
Exactly.
And then I'm letting the VA do something that is just legitimately mindless, like copy and paste over and over again. Like, stuff that I hate. I usually watch TV while I'm doing it. And then I come back and I'm doing, I'm customizing your forms and I'm doing all these things. So, I mean, it is awesome that you have found a way to still put your touch on like all of your client stuff, but you can hand it off so that you can do more of the things that you love. Like, I mean, I think it's so fascinating to hear that you just love marketing. I mean, I think
I love it.
A whole marketing chat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, I should rephrase. I don't know that I love marketing. I love using my brain in a different way than I've been using it. And I think I love marketing though. It's just very fun. It's not like I'm ready to be like, hey, let me market other people's businesses. Like I'm not there by any stretch of the imagination.
But marketing your own is a good feat. Yes.
I really, really enjoy it. I have found that it is much easier for me to talk about how fantastic my writers are than it is to talk about how fantastic I am. Mm-hmm. Which is so true for everyone. Nobody likes to brag about themselves. So when I can say like, oh my gosh, look at Caitlin. Isn't this website she wrote so incredible? It's so easy. It becomes so much easier. So not to like, don't get it twisted. I am so proud of what I've built. I am impressed all the time that we've been able to get to where we are, but it is
after a pandemic and having 2 children. I mean, I just feel like I have to keep on throwing that out there. Yes. You had like, things just kept on layering on you in order for you to not be able to like continue this amazing business that you
100%. But the beauty is in the people that do it with me. Like I would have never, ever been able to build something like this by myself. It got to where it is because of the other people that have been with me along the way. And not a team is not for everyone. I am not saying that, but for me, my life is so much better now.
So let's bring up tips, because you know what? Every time I have one of these interviews, I end up asking people for tips. And since I didn't know where we were going with this, I didn't think of tips beforehand. But Rachel, if you had to give a tips, however many you want, to a service provider that is thinking about expanding their business, hiring a team, kind of doing those things, what would be your number one tip in that area?
My number one tip is to make a list of all the things you hate doing in your business and then prioritize them from hate the most to hate the least. But make that list and have an honest conversation with yourself about why you're still doing it. Because I bet some of those things you could stop doing. Some of those things you could just change how you're doing it or how often. And some of those things you could hire someone else to do. I would say if you made a list of 5 of those things, you could get them all off your plate in one way or another if you are honest with yourself. Because the biggest thing for me was I felt like people hired, because I'm so vocal on Instagram and always have been, I felt like people, they were hiring me. And so handing it off to someone else felt like I was cheating them, which is like so narcissistic when I say it out loud. But you think that you have this special sauce and people aren't going to want it in a different way. But that's just a positioning problem. People are hiring my process. People are hiring the results. And there are so many brilliant people in the world that can help get those results. I just happen to have them on my team now. And so taking myself and the pride that or the ego I had in how we operate, taking that off the table, that's what transformed things for me. So make that list of things you hate, and it'll tell you a lot about yourself and the state of your business.
And Rachel, this podcast is not just for photographers, but I'm going to take one step back, because what you specifically said is how all photographers feel about their editing.
Yes. Oh, I was going to say it. I almost said it and then I stopped myself.
It's okay, because I'm going to say it, because that kept me not outsourcing my editing for the longest. And I don't know if you specifically know this, but I didn't outsource editing until I couldn't see. When I lost my eyesight, I outsourced my editing because I legitimately could not see the computer. Right. And then 6 weeks later, I was like, oh, these look just like I did them. I don't have to do that. And then I will tell everybody in the listening audience a little tip, because I hired a film editor, which I legitimately never thought I would do. I mean, people are hiring me for my like extra sauce when I'm making their films. Finally, last December, I hired a film editor. And I will say, up until now, she was just editing the films. When I got them, I was like, oh, that's amazing. I'm still going in and tweaking for like at least an hour because I'm OCD.
Right.
But I will say recently, I was waiting on her to give me a film back. And it's not her fault. I don't want to say that she was behind, because, it wasn't. But I decided to go ahead and make the film, right? Took the time, sat down, made the film. almost gave it to my client, and then she gave me her version the next day. Now, I will say 80% of the footage that we used in a very similar way, but I preferred her film. I preferred the way.
What a good experiment.
Dude, and we had never done that, because why would I pay her hundreds of dollars to make a film and then I do the same thing? And I was just amazed at, she picked like 4 clips that I decided not to use. Cause let me give you a number. That client had 200 clips. We probably put 40 in the film. So, we're whittling it down. And think about it. The 2 of us picked almost 80% of the exact clips.
That's the right editor for your business.
Isn't it though, Rachel? But I will say the 4 or 5 clips that she chose that I didn't, I was like, I have goosebumps about how much better that transition is with that one clip that she chose. And I was like, oh, so I sent the client her film. Of course I did my tweaks, because there are just certain things that
right.
I still can't bless and release all the way, but I'm really close.
But that's what I do too. My writers submit the sites to me, and I don't bless and release. They get an extra set of eyes. It's either me or another writer. I pay a writer on our team if they would like an editing income to go through and edit look at every word on the site and make sure it flows. And I was going to say the same thing. I have learned from my writers. I have learned, because just like you saw your editor's film and you were like, oh, I like this better. There is so much to be learned and gleaned from the creative process and collaboration. And I didn't have any of that when I was solo. I didn't, if I was going to learn something, it had to be on a podcast or I had to take a course. And now it's like, I have people on my team that I can say, hey, can you just read this paragraph? This isn't flowing for me. Can you help? And they're right there. And so there's so much beauty in that collaboration and in letting someone else do what they're an expert at. That editor is an expert at editing. And what a gift that your clients are getting in that they have 2 experts working on their stuff for them. That's how I like to see it.
Yeah, the client that I'm talking about, I just delivered the film, and she didn't watch it yesterday because I guess her husband wasn't home, but she sent me a text message first thing this morning. Oh my God, we cried. I'm like, oh,
that's all you want. That's all you ever want.
She probably would have cried at mine.
Yeah.
But I know that I sent her the better film.
Yes.
And so I'm like, awesome.
And that has to feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that you should, I feel like you will know when you have the right team members. So you said to make the list of things that you hate. I'm going to say that my tip is, once you hire someone, trust your gut. If it's a good fit, you will know it. If it's not a good fit, do not try to make it a good fit.
Totally.
You should evaluate why you think it's a bad fit. But what's the phrase? Hire slow, fire fast. Is that the phrase? Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be my little bit. I
100%.
have only had to do that one time, but I'm telling you, when you meet somebody, and it's the same thing with my virtual assistant. When she did it and she did it just as fast as me, I was like, oh my God, this is going to work. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, because now that we've made the decision that Chloe's going to be completely homeschooled instead of virtual schooling, I am actually taking on more personal responsibility than I have even during this pandemic. So it's great that you and I have businesses that are so flexible.
Totally.
That allow us to spend all the time with our kids and hire team members that we can pass stuff off to when we need to.
Yeah. Yeah. So many of my clients right now are so behind on editing because of all the rescheduling this year and all of that. And I have so much grace for them in my heart, but I'm also like, hey, don't wait until you are in an emergency state of mind to look for an editor. You want to have that editor that you can trust in your back pocket before you get to a place where you don't have a minute to breathe. Because now it's well, I could hire an editor, but it's going to take me a whole week to set them up, and I don't have that week. So I just have to edit myself. And I feel so bad that there's so many people in that situation, but that's what you use your slow season for, people.
That was what I was going to say. January and February, I feel like every year photographers should hire a backup editor during that time. Find somebody that you love, train them. Because I will say, I'm still not sure, because I used to use one of the big editing companies, and then their turnaround was just so long that I just couldn't.
Right.
And I still don't think that a lot of them have rebounded to what their editing turnarounds were before the pandemic. So, absolutely, we all have to look for places, but for photographers listening, editing is the low-hanging fruit. Please take it from me. I mean, you can see my images on the wall. I was like, no one can do it like me. It is a lie. It is a fucking lie. You can train anybody.
There's a lot of brilliant people in the world. You're special.
Better than you.
Yeah, you're special, but you're not that special. That's what I say to myself all the time. And I just want to say this for any outsourcing, for any business, anyone, I made so much extra work for myself by not being willing to part with a couple $100. Like, I think a lot of people don't outsource because they're like, well, then that's $500 off my bottom line that I have to pay someone else. And it's like, yeah, but then you can shoot more. Like you don't, and you honestly, you don't understand it until it happens to you. You don't understand how valuable that investment is in your mental health and in your, just like how much you like your business until you feel the freedom that comes with it. To be able to hand someone your images and not have to sit there for 7 hours and edit a wedding or a family session or whatever it is, or like for me in my business, to not have to watch my inbox like a hawk and constantly wonder if there's someone I'm not getting back to. I will pay Jess all day to do that for me and to take that mental load off my plate. And I don't miss that money. I don't miss that money at all because my life is so much better from it. So editing, yes, is low-hanging fruit, but there's so much low-hanging fruit in outsourcing, and don't let a couple $100 like steal your peace.
Yes.
Because you'll feel so much better once you hand that to someone else.
Rachel, I couldn't have said that better myself. Like legitimately, I mean, and I know it's like a scarcity thing in the beginning of
it is. And I had it for years.
Mm-hmm. But once you do it, it is so addictive because and I had a podcast episode about this. I will link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But I had this epiphany recently. Like, are you still in the DIY stage of your business, or have you moved on to like now when I add new things to my business or my plate, I am not trying to figure out how to do it myself. I'm
Absolutely
trying to figure
not.
out who I can pay to do it.
Exactly.
Like that's my go-to. Who can I pay? Oh, well, I don't have anybody to pay yet. Okay, let me take it on for now. But I'm actively looking for someone that I can pay to do this extra thing. Because at this point, I don't need to add things to my plate. I need to push them off.
Right.
I need to share with everyone.
And you hear that quote from the business bros, time is money, baby. But they don't explain what it means. What it means is you're going to spend an entire workday doing that dumb thing that would have cost $200 for someone else to do for you. And then it's not always even about making money. It's about you have 7 hours back in your life to do whatever the hell you want. Yes. And that to me, in this phase of life, somebody gives me 7 hours, I would cry. So anyway, sorry, I feel like I'm shouting about this, but I'm very passionate about it. Just spend a couple $100. I love
that you're passionate about this, Rachel. I swear, like we should just make this like a quarterly thing. I really want every quarter, and you and I just have a conversation about whatever we're feeling passionate about. So Rachel, for the photographers or the designers that just happen to slide into your DMs, tell them where they can find out all of your information.
I'm on Instagram. It's just at Green Chair Stories. And then there's 8 years of free advice for writing on my blog. Mm-hmm. So greenchairstories.com. Those are the two places you can find me. I respond to every single DM. My inbox gets a little hairy only because I'm disorganized.
No, and I will say, like, because I've been talking a lot about customer research, and she has this guide. If you've never done it, if you're trying to figure out how to like write your website. Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, it's called Write Your Website, the Photographer's Guide to Write Your Website Right.
Yeah, it's all those W's. But I will say, like, it's amazing. And I learned so much from like her list of questions that you should do for customer research. So, I mean, guys, if you're feeling stuck and you don't know where to go, like that's a good intro. But like she said, she has tons of amazing blog posts because, she's a writer and she knows how to communicate.
Also, Rachel, if you are in the DIY phase of your business, like you said, that's okay too. You can DIY. If you've got time, you don't have kids, you're starting something up, don't invest in things you don't need. But that guide that Colie just talked about is like perfect for that. Like DIY in the beginning. I will also preach about that and shout about that and get really passionate about that. But anyway, sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, it's okay. Rachel, it was amazing to have you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. This was so fun.
See you next time, guys.